Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
And here we are again, another edition of Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. I'm DR, with us today from the Toronto area, the creator, the author of the Murdoch Mysteries, and also now a new series with Detective Charlotte Frayne. And this is Maureen Jennings. The book I have in front of me is Cold Snap, so we'll get to that. So, Maureen Jennings, obviously you survived the pandemic in good spirits. At least I trust you did.
Yes. I would say hesitantly because the good spirits part I don't know about, but survived, yes. No, it seems almost honestly that the aftermath for me is almost worse because my life didn't change significantly at all because I work at home and we walk the dog, and it's not like we're dashing to all kinds of social events, and I don't work with any people, so externally it didn't change that much, but I feel like it's had a huge impact on everybody, and I feel that now there's a sort of depression, I think, going around, and a difficulty in some people getting back on their feet, and, that sort of thing. So I survived, but it's definitely a bad stretch, for sure. At least almost 3 years, wasn't it, really?
Yep, pretty much.
From beginning to when it was sort of, it's not over. Clearly, it's not over.
No. So what is your daily routine? I'm sure you have a routine.
I do, yes. Well, it's get up, I have a brekkie, take the dog out for his big walk. He gets a big walk in the morning and a smaller walk later in the day. That takes up till at least 11, sometimes a bit later. And then I typically answer emails and mess around a bit. And then I get down to work being the next book. Do that for 2-3 hours, take another break, etc., etc. That's my routine. That's pretty much every day, and it's what I aim for, I should say, because it doesn't always happen.
That's right. Things always get in the way. So, Maureen Jennings talking about walking the dog. The dog's name is Murdoch, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
everything in a house is called Murdoch, I think.
Oh, so
license plate on the car, dog.
all of that from the Murdoch Mysteries. Now, how did the Murdoch Mysteries originate? You had a novella out about them, or maybe you can take us back a bit to how Murdoch came to be.
Sure. I actually started out writing 2 mystery plays, which were professionally produced, and I felt that was the line I stepped over from messing around to taking it seriously, and that was a fabulous experience, actually. And I'd set those plays in the Victorian era, which I really enjoyed doing. And so after the second play, I thought that I'd like to write a novel set in Victorian Toronto, and I did. So that was, Murdoch came into being, and that was 25 years ago, because the 25th anniversary edition was just released by McClellan and Stewart. So that's the only reason I know how long ago it was. 25 years, yeah.
Wow.
And that was, I really enjoyed doing that. So I think I had written 4 books in that series when Shaftesbury Films were introduced to them, and they took the books, and very fortunate for me, they produced them as, first of all, 3 movies of the week, and then that did well, so they then started a series, a weekly series, and we're now heading into our 17th year. So I'm so gasping, I swear, because we'd be saying, "Do you think we'll go on? Oh, we'll get a season 2. Oh my gosh, that's amazing!" and so on and so on. So you never can take it for granted, but I've been very lucky.
So that's 17 seasons as we speak, and apparently it's not just a Canadian hit. It's seen around the world. Apparently, is that right?
It is. I've lost track of how many places, but it's well over 100 places around the world. France, Czechoslovakia, I know that, not Korea, I'm sorry, no, wherever, somewhere over there. Yeah, a lot of, it's really gone around a lot.
Yep, so that's Murdoch, Inspector Murdoch. We know all about him. Let's move on to the first time I read one of your books. It involved DCI Tom Tyler. Now, is he still around?
Yeah.
Is he still around, or is he retired?
Well, no, he's not retired. The nice thing about being a writer, of course, is you play God, and you can keep the time passing very short. So it's literally been years in real time, but in fiction time, it's only been a year for him. Four books, and now that also, fingers crossed, has been picked up by ITV England, UK. This is a phrase that you often encounter. I've now learned all the phrases. Looking at it, or something like that. But it's like that old film, and show me the money. When they show you the money, then you know that they're getting serious.
Right.
But at least it's a step forward.
Yep. And
We've that one. That was been a little while, but we have a nice, great production. Some producers who have taken it up and are trying to get it done. And sometimes you just have to be patient. Things go around and come around again. And I think there's more interest again now in World War II than there was. It kind of went out of favor, and now it's sort of back again, I think. So that's good. Good, we hope.
So what you're saying, it basically is if you're a writer, the key ingredient is patience. Is that right?
Oh, and more so, absolutely. And realism, patience, hope, whatever. Yeah, you never know. That's true. You just never know.
We had a segment very early in our lifetime of this Talking Books and Writing and Stuff podcast where we recorded an interview with Meg Tilley, and this was before I met you, and I didn't know that you were involved in Bomb Girls.
Yes. Oh, Meg was the star of the show. That was great. She was great, of course. Wow. Yeah, because I didn't know that she had written, I think they're young adult books, aren't they? YA books? Or not? Or children's books? Children's books? She's written, I know
I think she's written 2 or 3 mysteries that are set in like a sort of a West Coast Vancouver Island type location, although they don't say that are like cozy mysteries is kind of what they are.
Oh, okay.
And she's doing 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 of those by now. So the Bomb Girls, that came from a DCI Tom Tyler book in an indirect way?
Yes, it did, actually. The second book in that series is set in a munitions factory in London, in England, in Birmingham, actually. And by chance, Deb Drennan, who's the makeup artist on the Murdoch show, had already got a project that she wanted to do involving her grandmother, who was worked in the munitions factory here in Scarborough, in Canada. Mm-hmm. And so we just hit it off, and we forged out a storyline, and we presented it. And a company called Back Alley Films took it up and made Bomb Girls. And that was, Meg Tilly was in that. That was what she was in.
Yep.
So it was indirectly, but also very directly in a way, because Bomb Girls is supposed to be set in the munitions factory.
Right.
It was called GECO, but that was amazing. That was fabulous, actually. They did such a good job.
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful show, and too bad it didn't last for the same length of time as Murdoch. But
yes, right. Yeah. It went too soon.
Yeah. Now what I have is Cold Snap in front of me, a Paradise Cafe mystery, and I just have to share with everyone the opening line here, because that describes everything that every Canadian knows from from the time you're 6 months old. The air, hinting at snow, hit my face as I stepped out onto the street. My nostrils pinched together in self-defense. We were experiencing a cold snap. That's right.
It's a funny feeling, isn't it, when your nose kind of...
Yes.
I don't know what it must shrink or something. I don't know what it does exactly. But yeah. Yeah, we had our cold snap not too long ago, didn't we? And now it's a mild snap. I should have written mild snap doesn't have quite the same.
It doesn't have the same.
Cold snap.
No. So this introduces
mild spell.
Cold Snap. Actually, is a third in a series which I was unaware of Charlotte Frayne, a Paradise Cafe mystery. So it's a seasonal type thing, because the first one was in the summer, next one was in November Rain, and so now we're sneaking into Cold Snap. So what was the genesis of Charlotte Frayne? How did she come about? Frayne, rather.
A couple of things, because things, as a writer, things often start sort of somewhere else. Like Murdoch definitely started on the stage, and Charlotte Frayne actually began as a short story. I was asked if I'd like to submit a short story to a magazine, which I did, and I liked having a female protagonist because all the others are male. All the others, I mean the two others, and it was nice. It's been really fun to write in the first person narrative as a female. So I decided I wanted to, first of all, I think I started with the female part, and I knew that if it was a police procedural, back in 1936, which is when I set the book, it was still a bit limited for women on the official police force, what they could do. So I thought, okay, I'll give her a bit more freedom, and I'll make her a private investigator or a private detective. So I did that, and as I was, which is the way I work, I read, I call it casting a wide net. So I'm reading everything I could find on that time period and in Toronto, and I discovered, which I actually didn't know, that in July of 1936 there was a ferocious heat wave across North America, and I know we've experienced those again, but it broke all records, kept records at the time, and almost since. I'm not sure even this now it was that bad. It was 40 degrees centigrade every night for about 6 days. And of course, people didn't have the comfort that we have. Like, very few people had air conditioning. Very, very few. So it was really miserable. Lots of people died from the heat prostration. So that's how that triggered that. And then getting into the whole state of the world in 1936 was very, very interesting to me. So that's how that came about. And then I got hooked on the weather. Mm-hmm. So the next book was November Rain, because boy, we know colder, we know November rain, don't we? and so then the most recent book is Cold Snap.
Now,
And the one that I'm now working on, I've moved it on a little bit to March of 1937, and that is called March Roars, because you know that old thing comes in.
oh, right.
Goes
Yeah.
out like a lamb. So I thought, okay, it'll be roaring away there. Lots of wind. I'm using the wind. I like the wind. I like writing about the weather.
Right.
Oh dear.
So do you think Charlotte Frayne is going to be around with us for a while, or?
I hope so. They have a way of, it sounds a bit funny, but they do sort of dictate. The characters just kind of say, okay, that's it. I'm going to take a break now. Say, oh, all right. But at the moment, I'm having a lot of fun with that character and with that time period, actually. Very, very interesting time period. And I like that. That's a big interest of mine, is the social background, what was going on at the time, and trying to bring that into the genre of the mystery novel. So that's in Cold Snap. I keep saying this, I'm in awe, because if I may say this, I found a book. I order a lot of used books. I rarely ever buy a new book, I'm afraid. They're all used, because they're fabulous old books usually.
Mm-hmm.
And I accidentally, I still don't know quite how I got a book called I Was Hitler's Prisoner, which was written in 1933. And it's an extraordinary book, extraordinary. It's the account by a Hungarian journalist of how he was in Munich, and he was sort of swept up into what they call protective custody.
Oh.
And that sounds funny, but it meant they were protecting society against those people. And mostly they had done absolutely nothing except criticize the government, the Nazi government. That's why he was thrown into jail. So it's a very, very interesting book, and I used that book as the platform for Cold Snap. It was made one of those books that I'm sure you know, where you say that changed my life. You know, that book somewhere changed my life by reading it.
And that's the thing about books, is like, they're timeless. You can grab something, as you just related, from 1932, 33, 34, whenever the guy wrote the book, and suddenly you're using some of that those details to create something new today. And your Murdoch books go on for Agatha Christie books have been going on forever. James Bond books. I've got on my shelf right over here a hardback copy. Let me go away a bit.
Yeah.
Triumph and Tragedy by Winston Churchill. So.
Really? Oh, fantastic! Yes.
I don't.
It's so dreadfully apropos at the moment. Not when I wrote it, actually, but the whole thing about appeasement, which was huge at that time, like the danger signals. And Churchill, of course, as you know, was the one saying, look, you cannot trust Hitler, you cannot trust him. And there was such a fear of war that there was in the whole thing appeasement, of trying to say, oh, no, look, well, that wasn't Lord Chamberlain saying, oh, look, he signed this treaty and blah, blah, blah. And it's absolutely, so the 1936 was the same story, although it was the same story, but and so, I mean, right now, what is, to me, the mirror is, of course, Russia and the Ukraine. Like, oh dear, we can't interfere, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Right.
Until it's almost too late.
Exactly.
And clearly there's a megalomaniac there who's trying to just carelessly sacrifice people's lives just for his own megalomaniac dreams. And we've seen that before, haven't we?
Well,
anyway.
Yep, I know of which you speak. The guy that we're talking about, he's like a villain out of a James Bond movie, except we don't have Sean Connery to go over there and get rid of him. So
Yeah, right. That would be nice.
that'd be nice. So,
Oh, God.
how do
Yeah.
you do your research? Because obviously, research a big part of the Victorian era set Murdoch stories, and now in the mid 30s in Toronto, Depression. Canada was a backwater country pretty much then, from what I can gather. And what do you do to get the feel, the mood of the times? How do you do that?
I go to the archives and read the newspapers of the day. That's very helpful. I get as many books that were not secondary sources. I rarely use secondary sources because when I go to the original books, they will give me the flavor and often things that might not come up anywhere else. So I try to get a lot of that. Like the book I mentioned, it's an autobiography, really, and wow, did it tell me a lot. So I spend a small fortune with ABE books, used books. Each book doesn't cost very much, but then I get a lot of them. So, but I just say this is all work related. It's a tax deduction or something. but that part is, and I try. I think I might have said this before, but I really, really believe that you have to trust one's own reaction. Like I might be reading something and I'll say, wow, that's interesting. And you might be reading more or less the same thing and it's not as interesting to you. Something else is. And I think you have to trust that's what is exciting, because that's going to be the fuel in the engine that will drive you through the hard work of writing a book. So I've learned to really trust that and say, wow, that is so interesting, and hope I can present it in a way that other people would go, yes, that is so interesting, as opposed to, oh, really? Oh, yeah, okay, which is, I'm sure people do that sometimes.
Yeah, and I've got
We all have different tastes, don't we?
I just made a note of this last night, and it was Charlotte Frayne from Cold Snap. I won't give away any secrets, but this person arrived from her past, and she's explaining her work to this person. And little aside, Charlotte says Mr. Gilmore had taught her the ropes, especially the nervous ones, the ones who look as if they could do a runner at any moment. And I says to myself, that is not a term we use nowadays, but that fits right into what you would hear in like 1930s movies or street dialogue. So I guess that's my way of saying, wow, the research is impeccable,
yeah.
right? It's just, you got to get the little phrases and words that people might have used at the time, whether they smoked filter-less cigarettes or rolled their own.
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah. So, I like that. I don't find that tedious. I like those details. Of course, filters came in, for example, later, and smoking for women was still quite a no-no, really. Certainly, absolutely not in public. Whoa. So I decided she doesn't smoke because I don't smoke. So I thought, well, we won't give her.
We won't worry about that. One less thing to research to worry about. Okay.
Yes. No, that's true. And sometimes they're very hard to find. The big ones are easy, but the smaller ones, which I have fun with, and I hope makes the book seem very real, they're more difficult to find. So one of the things that I get all the time when I can are instruction books, because an instruction book from the time will tell you what they didn't know, what they think you should know, and talk about fabulous details. Like, for example, I have a book which was written, it's called The Constable's Guide. It's slightly later than Charlotte, but It's literally intended for young men, constables, going on the police force, and how they should behave and what they should know. It's fabulous.
Right.
Because for example, and I think it must be true now, they were not allowed, when they were on duty, they were not allowed to go into a pub, for instance, unless it was as part of their investigation.
Uh-huh.
So, boy, if they happened to want to go have lunch, I'm sure that's true. No, it's not true. I don't know if it's true. Maybe not. Anyway, that sort of that instruction book. They're such fun to read. I like stuff like that.
And Maureen Jennings, what are you working on currently? What's coming out next?
The one will be another Charlotte book, which I'm now literally writing. I've gathered most of the material that I need, and that one I followed again something that I find very interesting. A big part of that has to do with what was then called the House of Industry, which was the poorhouse. This is 1937, and what was going on at the time was Toronto and the Western world was just barely getting out of a terrible depression, a lot of unemployment. So I wanted to pursue that, and so the story comes out of that, really, of what was the social situation at the time. So that's what I'm plowing through. No, I shouldn't say plowing through, but it's fun.
That's right. Well, Maureen, it's been wonderful having you with us today. Continued good luck and good success. And I'm assuming your dog Murdoch was named after some guy that you created. Is that right?
Yeah, don't say it too loud. He's right beside me.
Okay.
He knows his name. No, he's asleep at the moment. He's finished his chewy. So, but if I just barely whisper Murdoch, he'll go, "What? That's not me."
Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, Dennis. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.